A ship cuts through the Pacific. No captain on the bridge, no crew in the compartments. No sailors standing watch. The vessel has been at sea for 3 months, piloting itself, hunting submarines, maintaining course across thousands of nautical miles of open ocean. This isn't automation assisting humans, this is autonomy replacing humans entirely. The US Navy calls it a ghost ship, and it's about to reshape how naval power actually works. For centuries, naval warfare has depended on ships and crews. A destroyer needs hundreds of sailors to operate. A nuclear submarine needs more than 100. Even with modern automation, naval vessels are fundamentally crewed platforms. That assumption is changing. The US Navy is fielding a new class of vessel. Large, unmanned surface ships that can operate for months without a single person aboard. They hunt submarines, they carry weapons, they patrol contested waters, and they cost a fraction of what a crewed destroyer costs to operate. The first operational vessel in this new class is called Sea Hunter, a 132-foot trimaran, autonomous, sensor-equipped, designed to do the one job that ties up more naval resources than almost any other: hunting diesel-electric submarines. But Sea Hunter is just the beginning. The Navy is building an entire family of unmanned vessels. Medium-sized hunters like Sea Hunter, larger ships that can carry missiles and conduct strike missions, a distributed fleet of ghost ships that can extend the Navy's reach without exposing crews to danger. Understanding why this matters requires understanding what it cost before, what we are replacing, and what changes when you remove humans from the equation. Start with the operational problem. Enemy submarines operate in contested waters. They're dangerous. They're quiet. They can hide for weeks. Finding them requires persistent surveillance, constant monitoring, a presence that never sleeps. Traditionally, the Navy solved this with destroyers, a guided missile destroyer assigned to anti-submarine warfare. The destroyer carries sonar, it carries helicopters, it carries weapons, and it requires a crew of about 350 sailors around the clock working in shifts. Operating a destroyer costs money: fuel, maintenance, supplies, crew pay. The daily operating cost of a destroyer assigned to submarine hunting is roughly $700,000 per day. A 90-day patrol, 3 months at sea, costs about $63 million in operating expenses alone, before you even account for the capital cost of the ship itself or the training cost of the crew. And that destroyer can only be in one place at a time. If you need persistent coverage across a 1,000 nautical mile zone, you need multiple destroyers on rotation. While one is on patrol, the others are in port, recovering, resupplying, undergoing maintenance. That's enormously expensive and geometrically inefficient. To maintain continuous coverage of a region, you need roughly 3 destroyers. 1 on patrol, 1 training, recovering, 1 in maintenance. 3 ships, 1,000 sailors, hundreds of millions of dollars in annual operating costs, all to maintain a presence in one strategic area. Now introduce Sea Hunter. A ghost ship costs roughly $20,000 per day to operate. Same 3-month patrol, same persistent coverage, but instead of $63 million in operating costs, you spend $1.8 million. And instead of risking 350 sailors, you risk nobody. For the price of one 90-day destroyer patrol, you can conduct 35 Sea Hunter patrols simultaneously. 35 ghost ships hunting submarines across multiple ocean areas, all unattended, all autonomous, all feeding targeting data back to manned command centers. The Navy can field dozens of ghost ships for the cost of maintaining a single destroyer on patrol. And the ghost ships have advantages the destroyer doesn't. They can operate continuously, a destroyer gets tired, crews rotate, the ship needs maintenance. A ghost ship never sleeps. It can patrol for 90 days without stopping, without fatigue, without crew turnover. It can do the boring, dangerous work that would otherwise require rotating crews through dangerous waters. Here's the belief breaker. The most expensive part of naval operations isn't the ship, it's keeping humans alive and functioning in it. This is a profound realization for military planning. For 100 years, naval warfare has been constrained by the human cost of maintaining ships at sea. A destroyer costs money, but the real cost is the crew. Their pay, their training, their rotation cycles, their vulnerability. Remove the crew and the economics flip completely. You can afford to lose a ghost ship in a way you cannot afford to lose a destroyer with 350 sailors aboard. A ghost ship costs $50 million to $100 million to build, a destroyer costs $2 billion. But beyond the raw capital cost, losing a destroyer means losing trained sailors, experienced officers, institutional knowledge. Losing a ghost ship means losing steel and electronics. That changes the risk calculus. You can afford to deploy ghost ships into higher risk environments. You can afford to operate them more aggressively. You can afford to have them take risks that a crewed destroyer never would. Sea Hunter is a 132-foot trimaran. 3 hulls instead of 1, providing stability in rough seas. The hull is designed for endurance, not speed. It can travel at roughly 27 knots. Fast for a surface ship, slow by naval warfare standards. But speed isn't the point. Endurance is. Sea Hunter can operate for approximately 90 days without returning to port. Range of over 10,000 nautical miles, that's roughly the distance from the US East Coast to Southeast Asia. A single ghost ship can patrol a region the size of a sea, maintain constant surveillance, and never stop for crew rest. The ship is equipped with sonar, arrays that can detect submarines at considerable distances. The sonar is continuously active, searching the water, trying to acquire targets. The ghost ship's AI processes the sonar in return, filters out noise, identifies anomalies. When something that looks like a submarine is detected, the ship's autonomy software takes over. The vessel adjusts course to maintain contact with the target. It maneuvers to keep the submarine in the sonar's optimal detection zone. It maintains distance, close enough to track, far enough to evade if the submarine gets aggressive. The ghost ship never loses contact, for weeks if necessary. A submarine trying to escape persistent sonar contact can silence its engines, become passive, wait out the hunter, but the ghost ship waits too. It has 90 days of endurance. The submarine has limited battery power. Eventually, the submarine must act, must move, must restart its engine. When it does, the ghost ship detects it. The contact is reacquired. All of this happens without a single human operator physically aboard the ship. The autonomy software is making constant decisions. Course adjustments, speed changes, sensor rotations. All designed to maintain contact with the submarine it's hunting. Meanwhile, the targeting data is streaming back to manned command centers on shore. The location of the submarine is transmitted in real time to other naval assets. Destroyers, submarines, aircraft. The ghost ship becomes a distributed sensor node in a larger network. The ghost ship doesn't need to be the one that kills the submarine, it just needs to hold the target long enough for other assets to engage. From a strategic perspective, that's all that matters. A submarine that's been continuously tracked is a submarine that's not a threat. It can't maneuver freely, it can't approach undetected. Consider the operational value. A diesel-electric submarine trying to operate in contested waters faces a dilemma. If it moves, the ghost ship detects it. If it stays silent and passive, it's not conducting offensive operations, it's essentially neutralized. And the submarine can't fight back effectively. It can detect the ghost ship on passive sonar, but what then? The submarine has limited torpedo supplies. Firing a torpedo at a ghost ship wastes a weapon on a ship that costs a fraction of the weapon's cost. A submarine captain faces a mathematical problem. Engage the ghost ship, waste a $2 million torpedo on a $100 million hull, and lose the elements of surprise when other naval assets respond. Or remain passive, maintain health, and forfeit the operational freedom that submarines depend on. From the Navy's perspective, the ghost ship has already won. The submarine's capability has been degraded just by being detected and continuously tracked. Here's the belief breaker. A ship that never needs to shoot might be more effective than a ship optimized for combat. Traditional naval warfare is about winning engagements, sinking enemy ships, destroying enemy capabilities through direct action. But submarine hunting is about control, it's about preventing the submarine from doing what submarines do. A ghost ship that relentlessly tracks a submarine, that never sleeps, that never loses contact, is solving the problem without combat. The submarine is defeated because it's been found and marked. Its operational freedom is gone. This is fundamentally different kind of naval warfare than the traditional surface engagement most model navies are built around. Sea Hunter is the prototype, the proof of concept, but the Navy's vision extends far beyond one submarine hunting ship. The Navy is developing a family of unmanned surface vessels, medium-sized vessels like Sea Hunter for submarine hunting and surveillance, larger unmanned surface vessels, USVs that can carry missiles and conduct strike operations. One large USV is called Ranger, another is called Mariner. These vessels have already demonstrated the ability to fire missiles autonomously, to conduct resupply runs, to operate in coordinated formations with manned ships. The vision is a distributed ghost fleet. Not one ship doing one job, dozens of ships, each optimized for different missions, operating together in a coordinated network. Some ghost ships conduct submarine surveillance. Others carry sensors, radar, electronic warfare, communications interception. Still others carry weapons. Missiles for strike missions, decoys to confuse enemy targeting systems. From a strategic perspective, this creates a navy that looks fundamentally different from traditional surface fleets. Traditional naval thinking is based on big ships, a carrier with thousands of sailors, guided missile destroyers with hundreds of crew. Each ship is a capital asset. Losing a ship is catastrophic, so naval doctrine emphasizes keeping those ships safe through air defense, electronic warfare, and coordinated tactics. Ghost ships flip that model. Many small, cheap, autonomous ships instead of few large, expensive, crewed ships. Each individual ship is replaceable. Losing a ghost ship is unfortunate but not catastrophic. Losing a third of your ghost fleet still leaves you with 2/3 operational. Try doing that with destroyers. The cost advantages are staggering. The Navy is currently limited by the number of destroyers it can afford to build and operate. A destroyer costs $2 billion. The Navy operates roughly 6 destroyers. That's $120 billion in capital, not counting operating costs. For that same $120 billion, the Navy could field hundreds of ghost ships, each optimized for a specific role, each cheap enough to deploy without agonizing over the cost of loss, each able to operate continuously without crew rotation cycles. The Navy could achieve greater coverage, greater redundancy, and greater surge capability by replacing a significant portion of its destroyer fleet with ghost ships. This creates a strategic shift. Instead of defending a few big ships, naval strategy becomes about defending and managing a distributed network. Instead of a carrier task group organized around a single carrier, a future task group might be organized around coordinated manned and unmanned vessels, each contributing specialized capabilities. The manned destroyer becomes the command node. The ghost ships become distributed sensors, decoys, and strike platforms. The coordination happens through networks and algorithms instead of through radio circuits and command hierarchies. Here's the belief breaker. The future Navy might not be defined by its biggest ships, but by the network that coordinates its smallest ones. This represents a fundamental break from 100 years of naval doctrine. Since the battleship era, naval power has been measured by the biggest ships you can put to sea. Dreadnoughts, battleships, aircraft carriers, bigger, more firepower, more armor. Ghost ships reverse that logic. Power comes from numbers, endurance, and network coordination, not from individual ship size or capability. 100 ghost ships coordinated through algorithms might be more militarily effective than a dozen destroyers. For 70 years, submarines have been the dominant threat in ocean warfare. Nuclear-powered submarines with global range, unlimited endurance, and the ability to remain undetected indefinitely. The submarine advantage was persistent invisibility. A submarine could patrol undetected for months. No other naval asset could do that. Ghost ships changed that calculation. A ghost ship can also patrol for months. 3 months is short compared to a submarine's 6-month patrols. But the advantage of invisibility is gone. The submarine is no longer the only asset that can be deployed in an area and left to operate independently. More importantly, ghost ships are cheap enough to deploy in numbers. You might not have enough destroyers to continuously monitor a strategic area, but you can definitely afford to deploy dozens of ghost ships. A submarine trying to operate in an area saturated with ghost ship sensors faces an operational nightmare. Every movement is detected. Every course change is tracked. The submarine has lost the cloak of invisibility. Diesel-electric submarines are particularly vulnerable. These submarines must surface or snorkel regularly to recharge their batteries. Every time they do, they become detectable to radar and electronic warfare systems. A ghost ship's sonar can detect the snorkel signature of a diesel-electric submarine from considerable range. From there, continuous tracking is straightforward. The submarine is caught. Nuclear-powered submarines have no such vulnerability. They can operate completely submerged for their entire patrol, but even nuclear submarines eventually must communicate with their command structure on shore, and communications require antenna exposure or satellite connectivity. Ghost ships equipped with electronic warfare and communications interception can detect and track the electromagnetic signature of a communicating submarine. From there, the tactical problem returns: maintaining contact with a moving target that's trying to escape. The strategic implication is subtle, but profound. Submarines have dominated underwater warfare because other surface navies couldn't easily find them. Ghost ships, if deployed in sufficient numbers, reduce that advantage. A submarine is no longer invisible. It's just harder to find. The difference is significant for operational planning. Consider a crisis in the Taiwan Strait. China has diesel-electric submarines patrolling the approaches. The US Navy wants to maintain freedom of navigation through the strait, and 10 years ago, the US would need to deploy destroyers and manned submarines to counter the Chinese submarines. High-cost assets with crews. Today, the US could deploy dozens of ghost ships equipped with sonar. The Chinese submarines are detected. Their positions are continuously tracked. They become a liability instead of an asset. Every one of them is being shadowed by an autonomous hunter. They cannot escape or evade. That changes the calculus of submarine employment entirely. Here's the belief breaker. When submarine detection becomes automated and persistent, submarine invisibility becomes irrelevant. For decades, submarine advantages rested on the assumption that the surface navy cannot reliably find submarines. Ghost ships undermine that assumption. If a submarine can be found and continuously tracked by an autonomous system that never gets tired, the submarine's advantage diminishes. This doesn't mean submarines become obsolete, it means submarine doctrine has to adapt. Submarines will need to operate at greater depths, greater distances from the surface. More evasively, the tactical picture becomes more complex, but the strategic principle remains. Persistent detection defeats invisibility. The ghost ship represents a larger shift in how naval power is conceived and deployed. For a century, naval doctrine was centered on individual platforms. The battleship, the aircraft carrier, the destroyer. Each platform was maximized for individual performance. The biggest guns, the most missiles, the most armor. Ghost ships reverse that thinking. Individual platform capability becomes less important. Network capability becomes dominant. A ghost ship by itself is interesting. 100 ghost ships coordinated through algorithms is a strategic weapon. The Navy is beginning to think in terms of networks instead of platforms. How do you coordinate dozens of ships, some manned, some unmanned, to achieve a strategic objective? How do you distribute sensors, weapons, and decision-making across a fleet so that the loss of individual ships doesn't degrade overall capability? This mirrors the shift in air warfare from individual fighter capability to coordinated air defense networks. A single fighter can be shot down. A network of fighters coordinating through advanced radar and data links can control airspace. Naval warfare is making the same transition, from individual ship combat to coordinated network warfare. What does this mean for the future? Naval forces will be distributed across more ships, not concentrated in fewer big ships. Individual ship capability will matter less than network integration. Unmanned vessels will do the persistent surveillance and high-risk operations. Manned ships will become command nodes and force multipliers, not frontline combatants. Cost of naval operations will drop as ghost ships replace some crewed vessels. Strategic reach will expand as ghost ships eliminate the crew fatigue constraints on operations. The transition isn't happening overnight. The Navy still operates and values its large destroyers and carriers, but the direction is clear. Ghost ships are the future. The question is how rapidly the Navy points toward that future. These strategic implications ripple across the entire maritime domain. Countries that can afford to deploy ghost ships at scale gain advantages. Countries that cannot risk being outmaneuvered by persistent autonomous surveillance. This creates new competition dynamics. Not about who builds the biggest ships, but about who can build the most autonomous systems, integrate them into networks most effectively, and deploy them at highest density. From a strategic perspective, the ghost ship era is only beginning, but it represents a fundamental break from how navies have thought about power projection and control for a century. The ghost ship story is about economics, endurance, and the displacement of human labor by autonomous systems. It's about how military advantage shifts when you remove the constraint of keeping humans alive. The Navy is building a future where ships patrol without crews, where submarines are hunted by tireless autonomous sensors, where networked ghost ships extend strategic reach while reducing risk and cost. But this future creates new vulnerabilities. Autonomous systems can be hacked, networks can be disrupted, algorithms can be fooled. The transition from human-crewed fleets to partially unmanned fleets creates new strategic problems even as it solves old ones. If you want clear strategic analysis of how military technology evolves and shifts strategic advantage, how economics and autonomy reshape force structure and doctrine, subscribe to the channel. We break down the systems and the strategies, but we focus on understanding how each shapes the other. The technology follows from strategy. The strategy follows from technology, and understanding both together is where insight lives. New analysis videos are coming regularly. Thanks for watching.